and there's this like NIMBY, not in my backyard
That's another
attitude.
one.
It's like,
Yeah.
Hmm.
when you get a house at a low price, like the boomers, arguably had much better access to affordable housing than later generations. And then that price skyrockets exponentially over the next 3 decades, 4 decades. Your incentive is to sit on your value. So you don't want micro housing down the road. You don't want affordable housing popping up down the street that way. You want not in my backyard. You don't want an Airbnb popping up across the street, lowering your asset value. Because after all, like you just told us, the most of their value, their net worth and wealth is tied up into those real estate assets. So you get this like weird, like restrictions on development and creates a artificial
You, you, you,
low supply of housing, right?
you know, you say that it lowers their value. In fact, it increases their value because now there's less stock, right? They're not concerned about the value of their house. They're just bugged because somebody's in their way. At the grocery store, on the streets, they get cranky. It took me, I've seen this. It took me 5 minutes to drive to the local store. Back before it would take me a minute. I'm like, get over yourself, boomer. It's called like evolution. That's what happens, right? Things, more people come, and they're like so cranky. It's incredible because I see it played out, and I'm like, wow, you guys are just. I think the word is self-interest. That's all they're concerned with. They're
Yeah.
not concerned with the next generation. They're not concerned about transferring that wealth. I'll give you another anecdote. My wife's family, her dad just passed, but he was a farmer. But at a certain age, he decided, well, I can't run the farm. I'm going to just give it to my son and my children, and
Hmm.
I'm just going to retire to an apartment. And that was the old transition, right? You would take your
Mhm.
asset, you'd say, hey, while I'm alive, you guys run it. I'm just going to go off and, whether it's an old age home or retirement community, and that's how they're not doing that. They're sitting on the proverbial farm. They're just like, and there's nothing growing. They're just sitting there. I'm like, oh boy.
That's a good segue into the next segment. They talk about that in the video.
Yeah.
It's a real problem that these boomers, most of their wealth is tied up in their real estate and their private businesses, and a lot of them,
Yeah.
a lot of their kids aren't willing to
Don't
take those.
wanna do it. They
They
have
don't want to
other
do it.
dreams.
Yeah,
They're not
Yeah.
even trained.
They
Yeah.
want to be a musician. They want to be an artist. They want to be
yeah.
Yeah.
engineers. They don't want to be a farmers.
Long term, does this even matter? I don't want to get too morbid here, but people eventually die and their wealth will get transferred down to their children or some other beneficiary. So the concentration of wealth in a single generation is at worst a transient issue. I actually made an entire video last year about the Great Wealth Transfer, which is the process of the baby boomers dying and leaving their wealth behind. The problem we discovered in that video was that a lot of the wealth that is being passed down is coming in the form of private family businesses. In brief, the problem with that is that often these small businesses need the owner to continue operations, and the people that stand to inherit these businesses are either unwilling or unable to run them. Small businesses are a huge part of the economy, and losing them will do a lot of harm. Now, a glimmer of hope here is that these businesses can be sold by their inheritors to people that do have the skills and desire needed to run them. Perhaps they will sell them to people who have themselves got the money they need to buy the business from their own inheritances. The problem here is the type of people that will actually be receiving this money. Most people don't receive money from their parents passing until they are pretty old themselves, often approaching the end of their careers or starting retirement. If the money gets handed down to them, they are likely just going to use it to fund their own retirements and then just hand down whatever's left to their own elderly children.
That describes the potential problem when you don't transition your wealth early enough, right? If you do too late, you're giving old children money where I think he calls it Prince Charles syndrome, and there's an economic term
Oh,
for it.
yeah.
Yeah, it's that they don't know they got money, but they're not skilled to do anything with it. And in the United States, I think 40 something percent, I just checked it, of small business owners are boomers. So that's a huge deal. They're going to be
I wouldn't say not skilled. I would say not inspired. Like, okay, take my own example. Like, for instance, 10, 12 years ago, I had almost nothing. And like I've built some wealth now in the last decade, but like I'm tired. Like if you handed me this money that I got now 10 years ago, I would have put so much more of it back into the economy. Now I'm like saving and putting into my kids and Like,
Yep.
yeah, like that's the problem that you have with this
Are
intergenerational
you
wealth.
planning to share with your kids in 10 years? Then they become like a adult, or like you can say, okay, half of my inheritance now yours. Use it. Let's
I
invest
think
for a dream.
I'm gonna be more generous with my kids than my parents were with me. I'll put it that way. I think the boomers are really have this like clinging to power and money thing, this materialistic selfishness
Eh,
that they've
it's
projected
again,
onto our generation.
don't forget about part of the world, conditions. Some boomers still don't have money, don't
Yeah.
have nothing to like.
Yeah. I
It's
agree
a
with that.
success if they found some money for education or found some money to for food, for clothes, for everything. So it's not all boomers. And again, we're talking about house. We cannot buy a house. What house? Apartment, a room, anything what you can buy. The small one, 30 meters, square meters house. Who will buy house? It's how many percentage around the world dreaming. Okay, we can dream about house, but literally buy house if you're wealthy enough. I think it's like
So,
10,
I,
15% can afford it.
yeah, go ahead. I was gonna talk about standard deviation, right? Which might as well. And you can lie with statistics, another good book. And he cites it. He says, look, if you say the median wealth of a boomer is X, you're not really looking at the fact that the skewing, if you look at the curve, right?
Hmm.
There's less boomers with a billion, and you have a whole bunch that have like nothing. But if you did
Yeah,
the median, it seems as if they're a wealthy class, but
but
again,
extremes.
it's extremes and the tails of
yeah.
things. And that's why a lot of them are not retiring. I think a lot of them are scared because also they're living longer and living unhealthy. And who's going to take care of them, right? That you might not have a medical system that can do it. So they're hoarding money. I can see it somewhat in some of my family who are older, where, I can see that they're hoarding money and they're just focusing on themselves. They're not thinking about, our generation and how to transfer wealth because they're concerned that they might not even, with their longevity, they're not going to have enough resources to pay for themselves. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. The end effect is we're all screwed.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, question,
Oh,
controversial question, and then don't forget what you want to say. A controversial question is about should they think about next generations? Any generation should think about the next one? Is it
of
like a
course. Of
mandatory?
course. Yeah.
Why?
I don't think it's
Why should I
mandatory.
think about next generation or previous one?
So
Why?
this old lady fell down and I'm thinking I have no business picking her up. I don't give a shit. But I picked her up. I said, "Hey, let me help you." That's my neighbor actually fell in
But
the
okay,
driveway.
it's another one. But about
Ouch.
transfer your money, which you
I did pick her
earn
up.
so hard working on 3 jobs. You
Did you
like,
pick her up or did you pick her up?
You know what I'm saying? Don't put that out
Okay,
there, baby. Yeah,
okay,
anyway.
standard deviation. Yes, there's
Yep.
broke boomers. All right, but overall, I would say boomers are doing better. There's broke millennials and broke Gen Zers that are even more broke. Okay, so like that disparity goes across generations when you talk about that. The thing I'm concerned with is the opportunity cost for society in general and people in general, and that's to answer your question, Elena. Yes, we should care about the next generation because that's what we should be living for our kids, living for the future of humanity, so that we don't all go extinct or kill ourselves or whatever. So, but the issue I have is, what about the lost opportunities of the younger generations? The greatest, did they call it the greatest generation that came out of World War II and gave birth to the boomers? My grandparents, right? My parents never set me up with stocks or nothing. I came out with nothing. Who bought me some stocks? My grandparents. That generation they were called
Mhm.
flappers. They were the losers, just like the millennials are called losers now. They turned out to be the ones that fought in World War One and World War Two and did everything. Like I, Mike, a lot of those people that came back from the war were young and they got the GI Bill and they had all kinds of social benefits. There was an unprecedented boom in American and Western economies post-war. The U.S. was a global hegemon. I don't think we'll see anything like that again. But at the same time, you had a younger generation that came into power and money, and you had a young President Kennedy that came of that generation later. And I just worry that we're siphoning off those opportunities by having these older generations cling to power. I know people are living 10, 20 years longer nowadays on average, but like, what are the opportunities lost from not having the younger generations have the wealth, have the power, have the political power and the social mobility to try new things, to give us new technologies, new experiences, to drive the species forward, solve these huge problems, some of them that we have.
Okay, I have what to say. First of all, a question to our audience and viewers. What do you think is like boomers have to help the next generation, give all their earned money to my wonderful millennials and zoomers? Please take my money because it's like a nature, a law of nature, and the opposite side. So just share what do you think. Depends on which part are you of boomer? Are you a Generation Z, Alpha maybe, if you know how to write that now. But in my opinion, the any generation, next generation should give education, like opportunities to use, like if you have technology, provide this technology, give the and teach how to learn, how to plan the life and everything. But it's not just, okay, this is my money, this is take it, invest it somewhere you want to invest. I don't think it should be some support at the beginning, but it's not like all what I earned all my life I just give you and retire. So my life is ended. No, if I 80, maybe I want to enjoy my life. And no, I don't think it's fair for the previous generation said, okay, your time's up, go away. On the other hand, some politic type of uh, maybe better to be retire in time, but it doesn't mean you need to be like a passive and do nothing. If you okay, I'm 60, go away from the road. The next generation is coming.